Hey there, it's Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, helping out the smartest buyers and sellers, including you. You're on here right now. You don't have to be a buyer or seller. You can be anybody tuning in. We just appreciate you coming out. We have an exciting topic today, although it's not a very happy topic. We're talking about end of life planning, the important things you need to make sure you do, because in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. Do you know who said that famous quote? Leave it in the comments. But we are going to bring in Kevin Snyder with Snyder Law Group. Come on in, Kev. Let's get you in here. Round of applause. The studio audience is super excited to have Kevin here yet again. Welcome, my friend. So let me do a quick intro on you. So this is super quick. So basically, Kevin grew up in small town Connecticut, did mock trial in high school, fell in love with law, went to Boston College, University of Richmond Law School, California Western School of Law. He did criminal law. He worked summers with a real estate attorney. And now here he is as a super duper uber trust attorney. Welcome, Kevin.
Thanks for having me, Christian. And you can throw on there that I'm also Uber dad, or Duber as we call it in our family. So if I get off of this with you, I'm going to go driving a little bit for the rest of the night. That's the way it is, and I love it. Wouldn't change it for the world. So happy to be here again.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. So where do you have to go? Is it soccer practice, lacrosse, swimming? What is it? Which of the...
Today it's picking up my daughter, who does theater through the Music Room in Orange, TMR, and they're putting on a little presentation for another group today. Not a whole theatrical event, it's kind of a teaser for the show that's coming up in a few weeks in June. It's called Good News. They'll be June 19th, 20th, 21st. TMR, check them out. It gets sold out all the time. It's an amazing, amazing show.
I love it. Thanks for plugging that too. That's awesome. We got the plug in there. So that's part of the fun of being a dad. So the acting bug, is it a musical or is
This
it
is a musical? Yep.
Okay. So who does your little one get the singing from? Is it you or your wife?
Definitely not me. That's for I do. I'm really good at air guitar and
Nice.
shower singing. So that's and I'm okay in the car, but really good in the shower. Killer on air guitar.
That's a skill. People don't realize how tough it is to play the air guitar and hit all those notes.
That's right. Hey, there's actually a league, and I think you can find it on ESPN, the Ocho.
That's my favorite ESPN channel with the squirrel water skiing. Yeah. So, and there's one other thing. He's also a published author now. So make sure I talk about this at the end. So Kevin came into the office, talked to a bunch of the real estate agents here, put on an amazing presentation. We're going to touch on some of that stuff today that he discussed. I shouldn't ask this, but any stupid questions from any of the realtors, or were they all good questions?
You had a great group. Not lying, as my son would say. Not even lying. I don't know. It's the thing the kids said. Like, good. That's good. You don't lie. But no, your group was great. There was really, really great questions, especially from Jackie. She was like rapid fire with really good questions.
Oh yeah. I heard her.
I felt I was being deposed at times, but it was cool. They were all excellent questions, though, so I couldn't really get irritated because they were excellent.
Yeah, well, and you laid it all out, and I'm actually going to pull that presentation up because there was so much good stuff in it. Tell me a little bit about criminal law and what that was like before we get into being a trust attorney. Just tell me some of the differences because I'm curious about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think today is a great day for the analogy because all eyes are on Rome today with the new Pope.
Yes.
And in Rome, there's this big arena called the Colosseum. The Colosseum, there are gladiators that would fight. And that's what it's like being a criminal defense attorney or in criminal law. If you're a prosecutor, you are in the arena and you are fighting to the death. And that's what I did for about 9.5 years as a public defender, and then tack on another 4-ish in private practice as I transitioned to doing something completely different and outside of the arena. So it's a blood sport, and there aren't really any old gladiators. So even Maximus, if you watch the movie, he died. So it does. And he was the one that was able to retire, and he still died. Uh, so you don't want to be that old gladiator. At least I didn't. So I transitioned to going outside of the arena to help people plan for all of the what ifs in life.
Yeah.
And so that's the transition. And the difference, obviously, in one arena you're fighting, in the other arena you're not. You're planning. So that's different. But I'll tell you, the working with the fabric of life is no different. So you have to be able to listen to your client's life story and be able to earn their trust in a very quick time period. Because when I'm doing my work now as an estate planning attorney or in an administration after a death or incapacity, you're working with people that initially you don't know, right? They're coming to your office the first time, they don't know you, but yet they want to talk about all their stuff that's really private and important to them, down to the skeletons in the closet. And you have to build that rapport with them very quickly, just like in the criminal defense arena, you get, especially public defender, you're getting thrust in right away, and you gotta in the jail cell make a connection with this other person so that you can best defend them. You have to know stuff beyond what's on the paper. So that's what I found really translated well.
That is a great analogy, and I love how you mentioned the Colosseum as well. And thankfully, that's not how they pick the Pope. There's a whole different process for that. And we've got our first American Pope, by the way. That's pretty darn
Yeah,
cool.
that was a dark horse because
Yeah.
not that I was looking on the Vegas odds, but I believe at least the New York Times said there was three cardinals that were American, and all the end was, they're American, so they're really not expected to be elected. So, yeah,
Well, and
figure.
speaking of Vegas odds, do wonder if literally Vegas had a bet going. So if anybody can leave in the comments if you know if Vegas, which casino had the bets on that, I'd be curious to know, because they literally bet on everything.
That's
So
right. You're betting on us finishing on time today.
exactly, I was actually gonna say something like that. All right, so let's talk about common estate planning mistakes. So this is the presentation. First, I already told you about this guy. He looks familiar.
Yeah.
Super smart dude.
Mhm.
And you guys have offices in Orange County, Pasadena,
Yep.
and we're one more up north, right?
We're up in Concord, in Contra Costa, and then also San Jose. We just
Oh,
opened up
nice.
San Jose. So yeah, we're up north and we're down here. I think next year on the table is San Diego.
That is spectacular. So, oh, and another important thing while we're talking through what we're going to discuss today about setting up for family trust, does this stuff only apply to California, or is this some of the concepts we're going to cover are universal, correct?
So some are, yes, universal, but the State Bar of California requires me to say this really fast disclaimer. Everything you hear today is all and only for California. I'm only licensed in California, and none of this creates a binding attorney-client privilege relationship. We really encourage you to have a private consultation with a licensed California attorney about this, or an attorney licensed in the state in which you live if you're watching.
Perfect. And
Yeah.
then I always say, I can't give tax or legal advice, but for the most honest and up to date real estate advice, subscribe to this channel. So these are the people I bring on, like Kevin, who's an attorney who can give you the right advice. And we encourage you to reach out after this to make sure you run your scenario and everything you're looking to plan by him, because planning is crazy complicated. But this is the reason we do it right here. It's all about family. So tell me about you and your family.
So I'm blessed to still have both my parents. They're up in the top right there. We're in front of the Universal sign there. That's my mom and my dad and my three kids.
Love it.
That was a couple years ago. So I love my kids. They're awesome. We call it the Snyder Tribe of Five. My wife is up in the upper left there with me. She actually runs the practice with me and keeps everyone in line and working. And I could tell you, she can sell a ketchup popsicle to lady in white gloves. So comes from a car dealer family, which is the other pictures there with my in-laws, and I married into one of the largest Catholic families I think on the face of this planet. So I'm still learning people's names, even 20.
Yeah, my grandparents come from 12 kids and 10 kids, so
Yeah,
that's where you start to get the cousins, or I'm sorry, the uncles younger than their
yeah,
nephews and nieces.
right, yeah.
Yeah. You get that.
Mhm.
All right, so we're not going to cover all of this today, but this is just a tiny bit. This shows you just a few of the odds and ends that Kevin can cover. I think the biggest point is that every plan is going to be unique, and really everybody needs a plan. So tell us what's going on here and why you got a wagon on there. And
Yeah, so this really comes. Yep, there you go. Look at that. It really is. This is the driver of that book, or at least the title of that book. What's in your wagon? I think for me, the best analogy I can think of about estate planning is creating a wagon to pull the important things in your life. And how the wagon works is that when you have all the important things in the wagon, you're wheeling it through your life. You're going to trip and fall in a pothole on the road of life. There's the pothole of death. We're all going to hit that one along the way. The longer we live, the more likely that we're going to get sick. We're going to become disabled to the point where we can't reason or care for ourselves, or maybe we have an accident, have a brain injury. And then there's a pothole of other legal challenges that we might face, tax controversies to lawsuits. So these are the things that make us trip and fall in life. And if we're like the gentleman here with all the boxes balancing, and you could do it just right when you're fully ambulatory and there are no problems, but as soon as you step in a hole and trip, boy, you're going to drop all those boxes and create a mess, and everything's going to spill out. And in the legal world, the person who's the cleanup crew is a judge in the probate court.
mhm.
We want to avoid that because they are going to clean it up their way on their time and your dime. But so instead, we want to put it in the wagon, wheel the wagon, and then be able to name who's going to take over the wagon after we tripped and fell down. So when that happens, nothing spills out of the wagon because you're not holding it. All you're doing is holding the handle. It drops, and the person you've decided to follow up behind you to care for what's in the wagon pulls the wagon down the road you've created for it. There's no mess, so there's no court involvement. So that's the key part, because what gets tripped up is anytime the court gets involved in any aspect of our life, then it's not going to be a good outcome. There's lots of long explanations to why, and you can go and we can talk about that for a long time. Just the takeaway is no court. Never, you want to keep court out of your life in all aspects.
Yeah, I don't think you have to even go into dramatic reasons why. I mean, it's basically it's in your control, and it's the plan you want when you create the plan.
Right.
I think that's what matters. And this is a great picture. Probate court.
Yeah.
So what ends up in probate court?
Everything that is in a person's estate is what's in probate court. So anything that's in your name, the title of it, the ownership of it is yours. So things that, like title, you have your car, you have a registration, pink slip, a bank account, you have a name on it, your home, you have a deed to it. So if your name is on any of those things solely, that is in your probate estate. I think about it like a big circle. So you have a circle, anything with your name on it at the time you died, that's in your probate estate. What we want to do is we want to get all that in that big circle into a circle called the trust. So we have just kind of like meet the Fockers. We have the circle of trust. So we have the circle of trust. We want to move things into the circle of trust from the bigger circle and leave very little out in that bigger circle, if nothing, because if it's in there, it goes through probate. So yes, so probate after death in California. Here's the big surprise. This is the biggest thing that really blows people's minds when I meet with them in my office or I'm talking somewhere, is you need more than a will in California. Because even if you have a will and the will says, oh, I want my spouse to be my executor, my child to be the executor, and here are my beneficiaries, and this is what they're going to get, super specific, that still goes through probate court a majority of the time. So will does not prevent probate court. All it does is give the judge a roadmap of what you want. And the reason is, in California, we have these old rules that just are antiquated. The values are so low that just about everybody lands in probate court if they only have a will, because the value is $184,500 of
For
total
total. So that would
value.
be every, like, bank accounts,
Bank account.
cars, jewelry.
Well, I would say the cars don't get included unless everything else is over $184,500. Then the cars get stuck in probate. But the reality is people have homes, right?
Yeah.
You have a home. Yes, we know the bank owns the home. Some people have, oh, I don't even own my home. The bank owns the home. Yeah, well, you're on title. The bank's not on title. You own the home for purposes of probate. And for purposes of taxes and all that. That is, you own it, and we're looking at the fair market value, not your equity. And that's the other key component. People think that, oh, the bank owns the this portion. I own the equity portion. No, you own the whole thing. You just owe the bank money. And
Yeah.
the so if you have a home that's your primary residence is over $750,000, then and you die and it's just your name on it, or the joint tenant that's on there has died before you, then there it goes to probate. So
That's a very good point you made right there. Because some people think they're fine. Oh, my spouse is on there; they'll automatically get the property. But like you said, they pass away. It's just you. You forgot to make any change, and now it's stuck in probate. These next two you have talked about before. You talked about in the meeting when you came in, and it's easy to forget these. A lot of people just think about probate for death, but run through these other two very important cases where a probate would happen.
yeah, so probate, there's obviously probate and death that we mentioned. Then what if you don't die? There's a bunch of different situations that could occur and you land in probate. So there's three doors into the probate court. One we talked about with death. The other one is if you no longer can reason due to a brain injury, due to dementia, you have a stroke, then you enter into the conservatorship door, otherwise known as the Britney Spears door. So everyone seems to know about Britney Spears and what happened to her. And oh my gosh, her father was in charge of her life and couldn't do that. How could that be? Well, that's because a California court said Britney wasn't able to reason anymore, and due to the mental challenges and addictions she was suffering from, and so appointed her dad to be the one that was legally in charge, even though when she recovered and rehabbed and can reason again and was fine, she no longer had these legal rights. They had been taken away from her by the court. So that a lot of focus on conservatorship court. Usually, the way where I see it is like, oh my gosh, I on the older side, my dad or my mom, um, they have onset of Alzheimer's, other dementia, and there's no power of attorney. We got to get a power of attorney. Well, it's too late at that point.
Mhm.
If they're too far gone, it doesn't matter if they can physically sign a document. If they can't reason and understand, then it's not going to be valid. So you have to go to probate court to get a court to appoint you to be your parent's conservator, even your spouse's conservator, even if you're married. You don't have any inherent authority. And guess what? Conservatorship. The other little detail that's a hidden gem, and I use that sarcastically, is that a conservatorship is going to be more expensive oftentimes than a probate after death,
Wow.
because it's going to take like $15,000 just to get the thing off the ground, to petition, to go through the hearings. The court has to appoint an attorney to represent the conservatee, to protect their rights. Guess who pays for that? You do. You pay for that, and so at the end, so you're paying like two attorneys, the one to help you file the petition, the one the court's going to appoint the person that you're trying to be a conservator for, and so it gets really expensive. And at the end of the day, the judge might not even allow you to be the conservator. They will
Wow.
pick a professional fiduciary, someone that doesn't know your family. Doesn't imagine that it's a husband and wife or a parent and a child, and the court says no, we're going to have this other person be legally in charge, and that happens sometimes. And if there isn't like, oh, obviously they're going to pick me because I'm the parent or I'm the adult child or I'm the spouse. It doesn't always work that way.
So, and to dovetail into this, I have sold a couple homes recently, actually investment properties for the children of a parent who was incapacitated. They had a trust in place. The trust specified that the children could sell it if mom was incapacitated, and what needed to happen in order to prove the incapacitation,
Yeah.
the doctor's notes, etc. So it's all laid out. So as long as we follow what the trust says, the title company says, yeah, good to go. if you don't have that, don't think you're going to be able to sneak in and sell it, title company is going to stop you. And that's really, for me as a real estate agent, that's, we got to make sure you have clean title. And this is where the trust helps with that. Now,
Yeah.
speaking of what you were just saying, where you don't, it isn't always obvious that they're going to side with the family. Talk about probate number 3 in
Yes, this
guardianship.
is a scary one if you have kids, right, that are young children, that are, when I say young, meaning under 18, they're not legally adults. So certainly scary if you're grandparents. It might be your grandchildren, and this is on top of your mind too, because what happens if something happens to your child and their spouse? What happens to your grandchildren? Classic scenario: parents, the families in the car going to Disneyland, get in an accident, a bad accident on the 5 freeway, and everyone's rushed to UCI or St. Joseph's, close to Disneyland there. And the kids are banged up and everything. Mom and dad are not doing well, and they're in the ICU, sedated, unconscious, maybe in a coma, who knows? But they clearly can't communicate. And so the kids need to be discharged by the hospital. They can't keep them there. They don't need care anymore. Who's going to be able to take them? Now, grandparents are like, we'll be there. We'll take them. Not a problem. Well, that's going to be a problem. You show up and say, "Hey, I'm grandma, grandpa, whatever. We have the same last name, Snyder, Snyder. It's the same, right?" It doesn't matter. I'm so sorry. We can't release them to you unless you have some sort of legal documentation saying that you can have custody of these children. And what the hospital is going to do, they're going to contact Orange County Child Protective Services, and then they're going to come out and take custody of the kids. And they're going to be placed in foster care or Orangewood, and until the parents can recover, or until the grandparents can scurry on over to the Orange County Superior Court after hiring a lawyer to go file a petition for guardianship. That's the third door. It sounds very much like conservatorship, because it is. It's just basically conservatorship for minor children, because minors are held out to be people that don't have legal abilities in most cases. So they can't be left alone, even if they're 17. Right, they're not 18. So this accounts for the infant to until they're 18. So grandparents might, in the end of the day, have a court side with them and say, yeah, they can stay with you temporarily, and we'll see what happens with the parents. And the parents died, and then we'll have another hearing to see if they can stay with you longer than that. But there's that interim time period that they're with foster parents, and so even if the attorney you hire is asking for an emergency hearing, we're still weeks in between. So weeks in between, these kids are not with family.
So upsetting. And so Kevin again was given a presentation at our office, and he ran through this, and then all of a sudden he's being accosted by the audience listening to Kevin when he talked about this. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would they not give him to family? And it doesn't make sense at the end of the day, but that's the way the laws are, and it's not Kevin's fault. But what Kevin is doing is he's sharing the path to make sure you don't fall into that trap.
Yeah.
So what I think is helpful is, in worrying about probate one, worrying about what happens after you die in California or any other state, Kevin or a good trust attorney is going to actually protect you for probate 2, 3, and many other things that we haven't even discussed. So that's what's great about the trust, and the analogy that he has about the wagon. There's a lot of stuff going in the wagon. The trust takes care of everything that goes in the wagon, instead of piecemealing and trying to do a will here and a end of life this and that. Do it all with the trust. So let's go ahead and take a couple of quick questions. We'll hide this for a sec, but we'll come back to it. So question, do you accept prepaid legal plans?
My firm does not. There are firms out there that do
Okay.
accept them. We don't. Some of the challenge sometimes the prepaid legal plans for law firms is the other side of that. It's like any insurance, right? It's, they pay a lower rate for the services than you would pay in the open market. So the same with doctors, and you see that in your EOBs. Like, it would really cost this, but we're only agreeing to pay this, and so that's what they pay the doctor. It works the same with legal insurance. So they're paying way under market value.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, and this is no knock on anybody, this is just how it works. I mean, we used to do it, and this is why we got away from it. It has to be a volume business in order to be profitable. through the legal plans. Great for the person who has insurance if you're going to a good firm. But what ends up happening if a firm is taking this, that they're just churning out the same plan. Oftentimes, it becomes a mill, if you will, and so
Yeah.
you're not get or you're just not getting as an individualized attention. Maybe you're just working with a paralegal and not with the lawyer at any aspect of it. So all these things have to be done in order to make it profitable. Because if the plan costs $5,000 or $6,000 normally, insurance is only paying $1,500, and that's what the lawyer gets. So they have to somehow cut all the corners to make it profitable. That's why we don't we moved away from it,
Yeah.
because it just wasn't because we want to give that individualized attention, and we still were. So it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. It
Yeah,
makes perfect sense.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
especially because you guys are creating highly customized plans. If it was just a more general plan, it's like the difference between like you got one job and you get one W-2 or whatever, and you file your taxes. Like you can go to somewhere inexpensive, you can go to do it for free. But if you've got a bunch of real estate, a bunch of businesses, have a bunch of things that you need taken care of, you're a more complicated situation. You pay more for it for taxes. Same thing, home warranties like that as well. And
yeah,
our line of work, like the home warranty companies, you pay $90. Some guy eventually comes out and looks at your water heater and maybe gives you a credit for it instead of actually just hiring a plumber to do it. Another good question from Carlito's Way. If I had joint tenancy with someone, would that avoid probate court? I'm going to give a quick answer and then turn into the expert. Like husband and wife, if title is held properly in the real estate, yes, it would automatically transfer over and avoid probate. But the challenge is, like Kevin said, where it's not in order. And then that's also only one piece of the puzzle. You got lots more pieces of the puzzle. So go ahead and answer that one. I'll let you take
yeah.
over,
First, I'd like
Celia.
to say Carlito's Way, great movie. That's a good blast from the past. If you haven't seen it, go rent it on streaming. But what you says is right. It's only one piece of the puzzle. I says you're just kicking the can on down the road one time. So joint tenants, one tenant, one owner dies, the other one automatically owns a full 100%. But what if those two people, because a lot of times it's husband and wife, they're together and the tragedy takes both of them, or the tragedy takes one of them and leaves the other one impaired. So we have probate because now they're entering probate at door number two, the conservatorship side, because you can't do anything with the house because a person can't sign a document, doesn't know what's going on. They have to sell the house in order to afford the care. They're not going to live in the house anymore. Whatever the deal is, they can't do anything without a conservatorship. So you can land in probate that way. Or what I also see frequently is you have the one death, everyone's grieving the loss of the one person, and the surviving spouse, the widow or widower, doesn't do anything on the house because they don't know, or they're not paying attention, or I'll get to it later, and then years go by and then they die, and they had an opportunity all that time to do something, they just didn't do it.
I appreciate that advice. Let's talk about, if you don't mind, I want to talk about your dad. And one of the things we had spoken about before is selling real estate to pay for care.
Mm.
So your dad is a military vet and you
Yes.
specialize in helping veterans. So tell us more about that scenario and selling real estate to pay for care, some pitfalls.
Great thing to bring up. I'm glad that you did, because I can't say this enough, and I try to tell realtors, like I did the other day in your office, there's two little takeaways: is if you have somebody who is a veteran or a spouse of a veteran and they need to sell their home, then you need to go talk to an attorney that is accredited by the Department of Veteran Affairs. They have to have a special accreditation in order to know and have the knowledge, but also to work with the VA, file applications on behalf. They have to be approved. So there's special designation for that. And the reason is why that's important is the VA gives money to veterans or the widows or widowers of veterans, so surviving spouses of veterans, to assist with their caregiving as they age. So once you hit 65, you're deemed to be disabled under the federal law that governs the VA benefits. So if you can financially qualify for this, you can get up to $2,400 a month to assist you for your for caregiving. If you are a veteran that has experienced some disability, like an illness, a disease, and you're diagnosed with cancer, like prostate cancer, or a bunch of other types of cancers because of exposures to toxins during your service. Think Vietnam, you hear a lot about Agent Orange, but it's not just about Agent Orange anymore. And you don't have to have served in the country of Vietnam nor have seen combat. If you are in other places in the world during the Vietnam War or Korean War, you would have been exposed to toxins, and now it's a wider net. If you have cancer or other certain diseases that have been acknowledged by the VA to be you're presumptively disabled because of them, it's because of your service presumptively. So they will give you up to $4,000 ish a month, depending on how disabled they say you are. Up to 100% is going to give you the most. And so it's a sliding scale. But the nice thing is that these are presumptive illnesses. So you don't have to prove a connection. Sometimes it's difficult, like ALS. That's not a presumptive illness. So those veterans that have ALS, it's going to be really difficult to make those connections. Sometimes some really bad back problems. I had a Air Force pilot that had just horrible arthritis and a super bad back, and it was because all the times he was getting launched off the aircraft carrier, and he was having difficulty with the connection to his service because didn't really start aggravating him until like 5+ years after his service. And of course, the VA was trying to say, well, you hurt your back some other way. It wasn't because of us. And so, but those are harder cases. The night with my dad, he served in Vietnam, but he was in Germany. He was in a tank unit. And when they washed the parts off with some chemical, was thrown on a list of chemicals now that are deemed to have been presumptively harmful. And so in the PACT Act, PACT, last March, it was came into effect that put this list of other toxins, other locations. If you served and were exposed to them, then now, and you later were diagnosed with a presumptive illness, then you could automatically just about, so you have to file the application and show that you do have this diagnosis, then you get the financial money every month that comes into his account. And that's huge for offsetting the needs for caregiving, which you might need a caregiver half the time. It's something that you might still, it's not going to cover necessarily everything because it could be more than $4,000 a month, but it's going to be a good chunk of change. The point is that what happens when you sell the house is now you're going to have too much money to get the first benefit I mentioned, which is aid and attendance. So there's two buckets for veterans. And if you sell the house, then you're automatically taking the first bucket out of the equation because you turn the house into cash. And the houses out here, it's going to be way too much cash for the VA is going to say, you have money on your own to pay for it yourself. Well, that's true, but who wants to just deplete down all of their savings and equity in a home now that they've sold it to care for themselves because they might run out of that, number one. And number two, they want to leave a little bit of legacy for their family.
Well, and there's going to be a big capital gains tax bill on it as well. So there's not going to be as much there as
You're
as you
totally
may
right.
need or
Oh
want.
yeah,
So
there's like 700 or whatever. Yeah, but you haven't factored in how much you have to pay the government.
yeah.
Totally right. So what we do is we tell realtors, people, before you sell the house, contact us because you can still sell the house, but if we do it in a special way, we have to do some special planning, and there's a special asset protection trust out there that we use. You can then sell the house after we do all that planning, which doesn't take very long to do. The sale of the house does not prevent the benefit. So we still have the two buckets there. So we still have money that can come into the VA. We haven't disadvantaged. We haven't missed an opportunity. It's so sad when I get that phone call and they say, "Yeah, we sold Dad's house 2 months ago," and I'm saying, "Sorry, I can't help you. Call me in 5 years, and then maybe we can do something because that's the time period now we have to wait." So it's so uplifting though on the other side when I'm able to step in and help. And like I said, it doesn't take long. I've literally had calls from when people are in escrow. I'm getting a referral from
Clock is ticking.
off a person agent, and they're like, hey, can you help these people? Or the realtor's calling me like, hey, we didn't, this came up, can you help? And we're closing in 2 weeks, and yes, we can jump in and we can do it quickly.
I love it. Now, how about for Medi-Cal? Is there any workaround for Medi-Cal? Because it does affect Medi-Cal, correct? When you sell an asset
Well,
potentially?
potentially. So it's here's the lawyer response.
All right, I'm ready.
I'm not talking underwear. It's the old rule, and one that a lot of people will remember because it was the rule forever, and it's the same rule in every other state in the country except California, is that assets matter. And that, I can't have more than $2,000 of assets except for my home. I can have my home, but any other assets have to be under $2,000. That used to be the rule, but it's no longer the case in California. You can have an unlimited amount of assets. You can be Donald Bren. You could be Donald Trump. I guess you could be any Donald with a lot of money, and you can technically qualify for Medi-Cal on an asset base because they don't care about assets anymore. They
Got
said,
it.
guess what? Unlimited amount of assets. There's no restrictions. So people are like, whoa, that blows my mind. So anybody can get Medi-Cal. Hold up, not anybody, because there's an income component to it. So California's a share of costs. They say, hey, you pay some, we pay some. So the more income that you make, the more you pay, the less the state pays. And at some point, you cross over that break even where you're not going to qualify. And then that's for nursing home care, skilled nursing level of care. Most people call that a nursing home. We're specifically talking about skilled nursing facilities, or SNFs, some people will say. So that would cover that. Or there's a special waiver program for some very limited selection of assisted living facilities that have that high level of care, skilled nursing level of care, but they're not a nursing home. They're assisted living. Maybe they have a memory care wing to the assisted living facility, and they have been blessed by the great state of California that says you're on our select list. Well, guess what? There's only a few of those in the state that are on that select list, to the tune that the wait list to get into those assisted living using Medi-Cal waiver is 1 to 2 years, depending.
Wow.
So the reality is Medi-Cal is really there to pay for nursing home care, not for assisted living care. And they have another component of using Medi-Cal if you're at your home for in-home care through Medi-Cal. It's called there's the in-home support services through every county. That's Medi-Cal. Medi-Cal will pay for a caregiver to come to your home, but you really can't make more than $1,700 in income in order to qualify for that because of the share of costs. So you get to have it make sense. You have to make less than $1,700 of income. Then you can have a caregiver that makes about $15 to $20 less than market value per hour. So you're getting the best of the best at at your lowest amount. So we're getting minimum wage caregivers from Medi-Cal. Not to say there aren't good ones in there, but
Yeah.
more of a crapshoot at that stage than it is. And you don't have a choice. Like you don't, and you'll get select hours. It's just, hey, this is the hour allotments you get, and that's it.
Wow.
Instead of, if you can work with an agency, obviously, then you have a lot more flexibility.
Okay, so let's step back because there's actually a lot more to unpack from what you said. Number one, this is not fun to talk about. Nobody wants to talk about these things. Nobody wants to think about these things, but we do need to think about these things and discuss these things and plan for these things. I know it's becoming an issue for people of a certain age, your age, my age. I don't want to assume we're the same exact age, Kevin, but you have to go ahead and make sure everything's good for your kids. So you got the bottom of the sandwich, and then the top of the sandwich, your parents. You got to plan and help make sure everything's good for the parents. So
That's
we're
right.
sandwiched in. Again, not fun to talk about this stuff, but appreciate you talking about this stuff. Number two, everything you've just run through, I didn't know anything about any of that. You are a true expert. And that's why people need to reach out to you, because this is just a tiny part of the plan that you can help people set up. So I just want to compliment you on your professionalism and knowing what you know, because people can come to you, give you their specific scenario, they need to plan for, hand it over to you, and know that they're coming up with an effective plan. So kudos to you for that.
Well, thank you for those kind words, Christian. You're definitely younger than me. You could just tell in your face. Look, this is so great, Christian, that you are this awesome realtor. And you've been so successful. And you just graduated high school, what, last year?
You're very sweet,
Yeah.
Kevin. You're very sweet.
But
And
on
I've
the
got I feel like an old man. My oldest is getting out of college now and about to go into the real world. So that also brings up another question. Like, should my daughter, who's 21, and my son, who just turned 18, I mean, it's ridiculous for them to go to a trust attorney, correct? Or should they be planning?
absolutely, they need to be planning. And once you turn 18, you're an adult. So now you need a plan. Now that plan is going to look different than the plan that you have as dad, and certainly later on in life. And I joke with people like, I can't wait to be a grandfather, but I can wait to be a grandfather. You know? Like, I have those conversations like, "Hey, kid, I can wait to be." You get me, right? I can wait to be a grandfather. But when you're your grandpa, when you're Grandpa Christian, you're whatever they call you, Wally.
Bite your tongue.
Yeah,
Bite your tongue with this grandpa talk.
yeah. But when you're there, your plan's going to look different than it is today, and it will look different than your kids' planning at 18. But the reality is, they need a plan because why? The law says that they're an adult and only they can give permissions for other people to act for them, and they don't have permissions. Oh, we're in door 1 and door 2. We're out of door 3 now because we don't have to worry about guardianship because they're
Yeah.
adults. So hey, something happens to you. Oh, guess what? We don't have to worry. In that car accident example, you got your 18-year-old or 21-year-old. They can walk right out of the hospital. Not a problem.
Yeah.
But we still have door number 1 and door number 2 problem because if they're in the car accident and they're the ones in ICU and you come in as dad and like, hey, I want to know what's going on, you're going to hit the HIPAA waiver wall. Uh,
Wow.
we can't really tell you what's going on because did your kid have a healthcare directive? Your kid's on life support. What are you going to do? Number one, can you make that decision? Well, there's a new law in California now that gives, in a situation where your child didn't have an advanced healthcare directive, would give the parent the ability to do that and make the decision, even though there's no document. But what decision would your kid want? You think about it, like, well, I've been making decisions for my kids their entire life up to this point, but now they're an adult. What would they want? And you're going to be in a position where you're going to be floored in a bad way. And I know because I've talked to parents that have been in that situation, sadly,
Yeah.
down to organ donation and all those things. But that's if your kid passes away, you're going or the end of life, you have to deal with that with your child. But then
Yeah.
what happens after death? And all of a sudden, like, oh, I have to close down their Instagram. I was going to say Facebook, but what kid has Facebook?
Yeah, exactly.
Look,
Their TikTok.
I'm now because I have Facebook. But Instagram, their Twitter, their Snapchat, all that stuff has got to get closed down. Can you do that? Do you have authority? Do you know their passwords? Yeah, if you know their passwords, you can get in. But if you don't, I can't tell you how many parents know the passwords to their kid's phone. You think you do, but maybe they changed it.
Yeah, they don't want you to know. My 13-year-old's doing that constantly.
Yeah.
We'll hold the phone up to her face and make sure she keeps her eyes open to get it open.
Yeah. So then what can you get in the phone? Well, guess what? Apple's not going to let you get in the phone.
Yeah.
Samsung's not going to let you get in the phone. It doesn't matter that you're a parent, your child's passed away, and you're like, oh, they passed away. Well, then what rights are they protecting? Well, they last after death too. So it's just not. Apple couldn't. The FBI couldn't beat Apple in a court of law in the San Bernardino massacre case, and so those data privacy rights are the real deal. So and that's challenging because then you can't get pictures off the phone. Maybe you need to get information about how they died in certain situations. All that's going to be really, really hard. And now kids these days are day trading. They have cryptocurrency, all that. Forget about it. You're not going to have access to any of it to the point where your kid's not passed away. What if they get injured? Again, they're in the hospital or they play sports, whatever, they get hurt. How are you going to know when they're away from home that they're in a hospital? How are you going to know that they're suffering from depression at school? How are you going to know that they got in trouble at school? the Stanford star goalie who was a freshman who died by suicide. That in the last, was that 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Super sad story. But she got an email that she was getting a disciplinary action against her, and then she committed suicide that night. Obviously, lots of stuff going on before that. Probably we can only speculate. Maybe there was some mental health challenges, but they're young and they're impulsive. Their brains aren't fully developed until they're 26. So
Yep.
how are you going to step in and help them? Well, it would be nice if the school contacted the parents, but guess what? The parents didn't have educational permission. There was no FERPA form. That is, I know it sounds weird. It's an acronym, FERPA. There wasn't a waiver for the school to say we can share information about your child who is an adult and a student here, and because the child didn't sign that form, so they couldn't tell the parents about the disciplinary action. They couldn't tell another situations. The school didn't tell the mom that the professors were really worried about her son because he was really depressed, wasn't showing up to class, and he later died by suicide. And it would have been nice to get that information, right? How do you think mom felt when she found out that all these people at the school were worried about their son and nobody told her? And so those are things you need to get the permissions together. You need to get this legal plan. We call it the Young Adult Emergency Plan. So we've been doing this since we opened our doors. We work with local schools to educate parents and the students about it, and we go through rounds of this. So we're in a big season of this now because we have a graduating seniors ready to go off, and
Yeah.
most of them have picked their school. So like, okay, all that stuff done. What do we need to do to get ready to leave? And parents are like, what? And then so we'll go through this round now. There'll be a pause while everyone goes on vacation for the summer, and then they'll come back and we're getting Johnny and Jane ready to go off to college somewhere, and then they'll say, "Oh no, they're leaving tomorrow. We got to get this in place." So August is generally also a busy. August, September, big months for that too.
Well, and you're basically reminding me of what I need to do because my 18-year-old who just turned 18, he's going off to college. He's going to go to University of San Diego.
Right.
So I'll be coming to visit you, Kevin. And that brings up another point is how often do we need to have our trust reviewed? Because it's major life events. Sounds like when kids are turning 18, that would be a good time. Marriages, anytime you buy real estate, death, obviously. Before the death, it would be great to have you review. What's some other advice on reviewing a trust? You've gone to the trouble to actually create it and you've listened to what Kevin's saying. So now how often should you review that and update that?
Yeah. So the other major event to throw in there, divorce.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times I meet with people that have been divorced for years and they have not updated their planning. So they still have ex-spouses on as beneficiary debt and beneficiaries on certain things. They have an old POA that has them on there. So things you got to clean up for sure. But other than that, the obvious to you in your life, like that's obvious. I got to do that. Anytime also that you acquire a new asset, it's a great time to, like in your universe, they buy a new house.
Yeah.
It's a great time to take a look under the hood. And certainly to make sure that the house that you're buying is titled in your trust. And because I see that a lot too. I mean, even my clients, when I educate, they'll call up and say, "Hey, we bought a house last year and we need to get in the trust." And I say, "Well, remember that time I talked to you and all those videos I send you about buying the house in the name of the trust? You know, that's important." But of course, we help them and get it in the trust. So, because if an asset is not in the name of the trust and you die, the trust doesn't control it. And so it's outside the trust. And now we have a court problem, even though you have a trust. So you have to do something, change the title, change the owner of the account to the trust for the trust to work. It just doesn't automatically happen because we said in the trust, my assets.
And a refi is another big one because I'll see when I pull title on a property, I'll see it going in and out of the trust, but make sure it goes back in after you refi.
Yeah, that's right. That's another huge one. So new purchases, refinances. Sometimes there was a misunderstanding who was going to put it in the trust, the lawyer or the client, and that they thought that it was in the trust, but it wasn't. That sort of stuff. But the other question was when else? Okay, so Kevin, we know that these big events, so we can spot But if it's been more than 5 years and you haven't taken a look at your trust, then absolutely it's a good time. Why? Because you can kind of look in your life every 5 years, there's been some sort of change, maybe something that might not be so obvious, but there's been some change in the law. Or if we got down and looked at your trust and we popped the hood, took a look at the engine, you're like remembering how it works. You're like, oh, that doesn't work anymore for our
Mhm.
situation. And I get that a lot too, because you're not looking at it every day. I look at this stuff every day, so it's like top of mind for me, and talking about it and thinking about it as applied to my own trust, because I'm working with other people's, and so I'm thinking about it. But I totally get it. I'm not, thinking about it all the time. Like if I were to sell my house right now, I'd be like, I would totally have forgotten what it was like to go through that process and things that I would have to know to sell my house or purchase a new house and all that.
Exactly.
Right. So that we hire a good realtor like you to help me through that process, because you deal with it all the time and you can map it out. And I'll be sitting there going, oh, yeah, I remember that. Right. So that's the same thing that happens. It's just a good idea to get a good mapping of your trust, especially if it has been 5 or more years. Um, the way we run our office, we have a really great concierge program called Client Care. A number of our clients love it and they take advantage of it. It's not mandatory, but we offer it. We meet with clients every year. We have an annual meeting just to sit down and talk about life, and their plan, to make sure that the plan is still connected to the goals of their life. And if there's a law change, does that somehow interrupt how their plan's going to operate? Because again, we're goal oriented, so we want to make sure that we can get to goal, and we have this tool to get us there. But is that tool broken because of things going on in our life, or is the tool broken because the law broke it? So what do we need to fix? Sometimes we don't need to fix anything. A lot of times we don't, and oftentimes it's just we're talking about something related, like insurance, or oh, you want to buy a new house, or you're trying to save for retirement, or hey, my kid's graduating from high school and is 18. We're talking about other things going on in life that sometimes involve us and sometimes involve us um, branching out and connecting our great network to help them. But if you stay and you have the pulse of your plan, then if something comes up, you're dealing with it in the moment, and that's the best way to ensure that your plan is going to work. Because it's like buying a car, Christian. When you buy a car, you want to drive it, right? But you're like, oh, estate plan is different. But just think about this: you bought a new car. You're like, this is going to be the car that I'm going to have for the moment that we need it in the future. And you shove it in the garage, and it sits in the garage for years and years and years. 30 years later, that's the moment when there's an emergency, and yeah, we got the hot rod to get us to the hospital. And you go and you jump in the car because of the emergency, and you try to turn it on, and what's going to happen? Battery's dead, tires flat.
Love it. That's a perfect analogy. And it's funny you were use that analogy because I was thinking the same thing. Like you got to also take your car, get oil changes. Sometimes it's just a little thing here or there, but you got to do it regularly. And then sometimes it needs all new brakes and rotors and everything, and it's a big expensive bill, but it needed to be done for that car to continue going. So
It's a big
perfect analogy.
going 70 miles an hour down the 405. God help you.
So, Army Veterano, good to see you. This person's a client of mine, and this person really appreciates the show and the information you're sharing. So, Kevin, I want to be cognizant. We're almost at an hour. It's flown by. It's been tons of fun. Tell me, how do I pick a good trust attorney? Number one. So, go ahead and tell me that.
So, number one, obviously you want to vet them. Best way to vet them at the start, go to calbar.org and do an attorney search and pull them up. And then you can see if they have how long they've been an attorney, and if they have any discipline. So that's number one. So that'll show you there. Now the length of time they've been an attorney might not matter to you as much, depending on what you're trying to accomplish. So looking at your goals, if you're somewhat a little bit more advanced, like you have a second marriage, you have a blended family scenario, you're looking for, using fancy words, asset protection. You have a rental property, and you're looking to avoid getting sued. So if you have a blended family, you're trying to protect your assets in case you get sued. If you're already getting sued, sorry, you're SOL. That's a legal term. Supreme Court definitely supports me. Justice Alito was really great with that. Anyhow, those need or you're worried about tax planning, then you need someone with more experience. in the estate planning universe for that. It might not always be able to tell that from their LinkedIn or their website or whatever, because those are profiles where we're like, hey, we're awesome, this is us, self-admitted. It's a marketing tool to connect and display all your greatness. But you go and meet with them, and so then you meet with them. These are questions that you can ask and inquire, like, how long have you been practicing in this particular area? How long do you handle these types of matters and cases? Then you take a look at that. You also want to look at staff. um, a lot of solo people out there, that's fine, but who do they surround themselves with? Do they have a team? You want to work with a team. You don't want to work with one-off. You don't want to work with one person. I know some people that are they're one-offs. You got to get started somewhere. I was that person. We're always two. It was me and my wife. And you got to get started somehow. But over time, if you really want, and you have to keep an eye, you say, I'll take a chance on that younger guy who's by himself. Maybe he's got one staff member, but you want to see them grow over time, though. That means they're being obviously successful, but they're surrounding themselves with a team, because the more clients they take on, the harder it is for them to give you individualized attention over time. So team and staff is important. Who are you going to be talking to is the other. Are you going to be talking to the lawyer? Or you're just going to be talking to non-lawyers. Now, it's okay. The team's not going to always be all lawyers, right? That's fine. My team's not all lawyers. You need a team of non-lawyers to support the lawyers, because lawyers, we're notoriously like squirrels. We're like, hey, what's over here? We're like little kindergartner kids. We're going, we need handlers. I need a handler. I need lots of handlers. I got
Me
great,
too. Me
right?
too. I'll
But
admit it.
you have to make sure that you're at least somewhere in that chain of people you're working with. You're talking to a lawyer at some point, and it's clear that there's lawyers involved, and you're just not working with like a paralegal outfit who's giving you legal advice, which is inappropriate. But you want to have some of that oversight. You got to look at that, and then it's up to you whether geography. Do you want to walk into an office, or are you okay with Zoom? We have both options, because clients they have needs for both. So those are some things to take a look at.
There's
The
actually a lot of overlap into choosing a good real estate agent, some of those things as well. So that's a good list. I may borrow that list and use it at one point in time for me. So then, having said that, what makes you guys the right team to choose at Snyder Law?
we're admittedly, we're not always going to be the great fit for everybody. So it's not like, hey, everyone come to us. We're the best of the best. We're going to be able to help everyone. No, I mean, it's a relationship. So as we know, we're humans. Not all relationships work. So that's why we have that initial meeting with clients, our initial consultation. We call it a strategy meeting, or it's a trust review for reviewing a trust. It's a great opportunity for us to talk about just the plan ahead, but also to see if there's a good connection and a good fit there, because we're not for everybody and everyone's not for us. So that's just normal. If you get somebody who's like, oh yeah, we're a great fit for everybody, red flags. We'll just take everybody. But beyond that, like, what I think we do really well, Christian, is that we have such a great emphasis on relationship building. And I have a team that is very focused on relationship building all across the line, from when you call or you email in a request for a consultation. You're getting a call from us, from our receptionist. You're getting that white glove service, that we're building the relationship from the very beginning, and everybody is trained to do that. But it's beyond training; they want to do that. We've pulled them from non-lawyer sources. We have former teachers. We got people that were in all sorts of other positions. We got people from all over the world. We got our intake specialists from France. I mean, we have people that we look at, and the talent we choose is, do you have care and compassion for another person that you're going to want to help? Because that's what we do. So we talk about hugging our clients. There's a great book. I'm going to plug it for everybody, certainly for you, Christian, and for your team. Hug your customers. Hug your customers. It's here. I'll have it right here. Hug Your Customers by Jack Mitchell.
Oh, nice.
So this book right here really solidifies how we do business. It's about caring for the person. At the end of the, yes, we're providing legal advice, but we're caring for the person, and that's what makes us different. And we're not transactional. Like I said, we're building relationships. Yes, we're going to be doing a project, but the idea is this is one project of many we're hopefully doing for you along the way, because that means we're doing our job. And that means we're helping educate you, be diligent about your planning. So we're also big educators, because it's not that knowledge is power, it's implementation of the knowledge is power. Right.
Educator right here.
That's right.
Not only does Kevin spend time with us, an hour being live and doing this multiple times, comes in and does classes, and also has a book of What's in Your Wagon, an amazing book. I started reading it, easy read, and explains what you need to know, not to do it yourself, but to hire the appropriate professional to do it. All right, so we're at an hour. So in order to set up that consultation, Kevin, they can go to snyderlawpc.com, correct?
That's right.
To set up the strategy meeting. And in fact, I haven't set one up yet with you, but after today and last time, I'm going to set one up because we got to sit down and strategize. So thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking this time. I really
You're
appreciate it.
welcome. I'm happy to do it. If anything, it's just in case it doesn't go across, I am super passionate about it. So I go off these like rants, because it just I can't say enough. There's so much out there. There's a lot I don't know about things, and so I look to other people like you that are passionate about what you do to help educate me and guide me. But this is the universe of the area of law that I'm super passionate about. And if I can help another person in some other way, my team can, because I have a team. So it's not just, I told you, it's not just me, but we have two other attorneys that work here as well. They're super passionate. If we can help your family or you in some way, and you, Christian, yes, but also anybody who's watching this, it'd be a privilege to do so, because it'll just be nice to get to know you, because it's been a great way to meet people. I tell you, for me,
Yeah.
that guy from small town Connecticut gets to meet a ton of people out here in Orange County, and then LA and Pasadena, now San Jose and up north. It's just been a wonderful way to meet people.
No, you're an amazing dude, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing. All right, go get. You got to get to musical practice and pick up. So, good job, Dad. Thank you for being here, Kevin, and make sure you tune in because you're going to be coming back. So, Kevin's going to be coming back. I'm not letting him go because he's a super valuable resource, and we've only scratched the surface on what we need to know. So, thanks for coming out, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
Take care.